Ben. Okay, welcome everybody. This is the Lehigh County Authority Board of Directors meeting of July 24th, 2023. This meeting is being held in a hybrid manner with one person from the board being present in the meeting in the office and the others on Zoom. We do have a quorum at this point in time. We will do a roll call of the board and verify that.
Okay, we will conduct a roll call of the board members online and present. Brian Noggle.
Here.
Amir Famili.
Here.
Linda Rosenfeld.
Here.
Norma Kusick.
Here.
Kevin Baker. Jeff Morgan. Sean Ziller.
Here.
Mark Gramis. Ted Lyons. So we have 5 and have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Ed.
One other thing, sorry, Brian, before we proceed, our normal solicitor, Mike Gall, is not in attendance today. King Spry is being represented by Rich Campbell.
Thanks, Ed.
Okay, welcome, Rich. All right, the packets for the board were distributed in advance. Everybody should have gotten the email as well as hard copy, and it is available on the website for everybody to review. At this point in time, we're going to review the agenda and any need for any changes to the agenda, executive sessions as well. Ed?
To my knowledge, there are no changes to the agenda.
All right, any need for executive session?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you. Don't expect one. All right, the next thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the board meeting of July 10th, 2023.
Make the motion.
I'll second.
All right, I think that was Amir making the motion and Sean seconding the motion to accept the minutes as presented. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting notes were approved. Thank you. At this point in time, we open up the floor to any public comments or on items that are not on the agenda. Do we have any public comments?
No, thank you, Brian.
Yep, no, thank you.
All right, Jenny and Brian. All right, moving on then to the action and discussion items. We have one under finance and administration. It's resolution number 7-2023-1. It's approval of the Suburban Water Division. Hold on a minute. Let's back up on that. I think there was a request for a change in the order of the agenda. Ed, is that true?
I'm not sure that I'm aware of what the change is. I know that we have a representative from Keystone Consulting, Dave Bush, here, who would sure like to go first, and then we could fill in with everything else.
All right, then let's do that. And what is that, the topic of that presentation?
So that is the resolution that you made, that you referred to. This is approval of the suburban water and suburban wastewater tapping fees, which is a normal occurrence that we do usually in June or July of every year. You had as part of the package a complete report from Dave and his consulting firm's business with respect to water and wastewater. And at this time, I'm going to let Dave speak about the work that was done and what the results were.
Okay, before Dave speaks, this is the yellow documents within our board package, and it is digital board package pages 7 through 96. Right, Dave?
Thank you very much. Again, I am back again. I was here a year ago presenting the tapping fees that we had updated at that time. For any new board members, the tapping fees are upfront contributions or payments made by new connections to the system. They only impact developers or new connections to the system. And they are calculated under Act 57 of 2003, which mandates that any tapping fees be calculated in a particular manner so that you are following the prescribed method per the legislation. The tapping fees simply are the authority's way of recouping some of the upfront costs associated with capital in your system. Basically, the costs are divided by the capacity of the system after making numerous adjustments to those costs. First off, the only thing that is counted is the actual cost you have paid. Any grants or contributions are subtracted from the calculation. In addition, we also adjust under one of the methods of the capital is indexed or trended forward to today's dollars, okay? But also any outstanding debt is subtracted from that method so that we can calculate properly the maximum allowable tapping fee. That is what our reports do, is calculate that maximum tapping fee. The authority has the latitude to charge that fee or any fee or a uniform fee under that amount. You may not charge anything above that amount, okay? The tapping fee reports include a short narrative that explains each of the charges being made. Also, within that report, there is a table 1 and there is exhibit 1, which are probably the level in which the board members would typically want to look at. That go through the process in summary form. All of the detail in exhibit 1 and table 1 can be found in the back portion of the report. So there are no numbers that come from anywhere other than the report. But we have gone through the prescribed process and calculated the maximum allowable tapping fees, which is summarized in table 1 and shown in a little more detail in the schedule of charges for the authority for both the water and sewer. And as I said, exhibit 1 goes through the calculation, but in somewhat of a summary format, but you can see all of the components there. I don't want to lengthen your meeting any more than necessary. So I'll stop there and ask if there are any questions or specific areas the board would like me to address. Otherwise, I will stop my presentation there.
So just for the board's purpose, basically, this is a reiteration of what we've done in past years. We take the previous rates. You heard that Dave follows the letter of the law on all the calculations. So what we do is provide him an update to capital spending. We provide him an update to where we are with respect to our debt service so that he could make the necessary adjustments. And then he issues his report, as you have seen. And then we ask you to say that we can, at some point in time, affect new tapping fees.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Any board questions? It's a lengthy document, but it's pretty straightforward. It's the same we've been doing all the time. So any board questions? Any questions? All right, then go ahead.
I move we adopt resolution number 7-2023-1.
I'll second that. This is Norma.
All right, thank you for the motion. The second, it's a resolution establishing the various components of the Lehigh County Authority capital recovery fees for the various suburban division water systems and the capital recovery fees for the various suburban division wastewater systems. Any further questions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You get all the ayes?
I don't know that we heard from Amir.
Aye.
All right. We have 5 ayes out of 5 board members present. Thank you very much. The motion is passed.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dave.
Thank you all. I'll see you at this time next year, I assume.
All right, very good. Thank you. All right, moving on, we have one item under water. It is the water filtration plant, PFAS compliance study, seeking approval of a document. It's the green documents within our board package and digital board package pages 97 to 101.
Hey, thanks, Brian. This is AJ Capuzzi. I'll be providing our summary of this request for approval today. We're requesting board approval of $97,778 for a task order for Hazen and Sawyer to complete a study that will evaluate options and recommend a plan for our city sources to address proposed regulations for PFAS compounds. We have been monitoring the compounds. We're showing elevated levels in some of our sources. We're currently in compliance with the state regulation. The federal limits that have been proposed are lower, and so we believe it's important to evaluate our options, look at Crystal, Sean's, the Little Lehigh, and the big Lehigh, and look at what our options are for treatment. So this is basically a study to evaluate what those options and come up with a recommendation. The options include things like granular activated carbon, ion exchange, and some novel absorbents like Setco's Fluorosorb media. They'll evaluate those options on capital and operating cost basis. They will develop a concept design and cost estimates for that work and make recommendations for any additional testing. That's sort of it in a nutshell. Again, requesting approval for $97,778 for a study for Hazen to complete for evaluation of treatment options for PFAS.
Any board questions?
I have a couple of questions, Brian.
Go right ahead, Amir.
AJ, have you done any variability study? I assume majority of our water is coming from Little Lehigh Creek. So have you done a variability study to see, I do recognize very difficult because, even the variability, they have a lot of variability in them because there is a constant flow of water. Do we know the window of what is the high and low on the fluoro compound that we need to remove?
Can you repeat the last question again?
So do we know the window, the low and the high? Have we taken enough sample to know whether we have to remove 4 part per trillion or we have to remove 15 part per trillion?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we've been collecting samples as part of the UMCR requirements. So we have some samples and we have some results. We're hovering right around the limit for the Little Lehigh. The limit is proposed 4 parts per trillion, and we're basically right around that number for the Little Lehigh. We are collecting additional samples as part of the UCMR rule, and so we'll have more data from which to evaluate. But yeah, that's about what we know right now. So we've been collecting samples. I'm looking at our results here since let's see here, 2022.
Okay.
So
Thank you. Second question, obviously removing perfluoroalkyl compounds, a lot of people have done that and know the efficacy, whether they use an ion exchange resin or activated carbon. Have we consulted or approached other municipalities, cities that they have done that and get an idea from them that where they have seen more effectiveness on removing a compound?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're aware of what's been done elsewhere. You're absolutely right. We know that certain products are very effective for removal of PFOA, PFAS. And so, yeah, we're taking that information into account. The unique part of these analysis has to do with, for example, the total organic carbon that's in our source water for the Little Lehigh, for the water treatment plant option. The amount of organic carbon will affect the effectiveness of something like granular activated carbon.
Okay.
GAC basically uses it. So yeah, it's a sort of a, we are looking at what has worked elsewhere, but we're trying to find what will work best here for our specific water quality.
And are we going to go to a pilot, or how are we going to go about? Because
Yeah, it's a very good question. Depends on what we end up recommending. If we have something like GAC that's been very well studied and there's a lot of information, we may be able to forego piloting. If on the other hand, something like the Setco Fluorosaur product, which is a clay-based material that hasn't been tested as much, we may want to do pilot testing as part of that. So this is a 3-month study. They will recommend coming out of that whether or not we should do any longer-term testing. And if we do piloting, we'll probably end up doing it for about a year in order to capture the 4 seasons. We have until the end of 2026 to make the modifications to the facilities. So we don't have all the time in the world. But yeah, piloting is a possibility, but depends on what media is viewed to be the best.
thank you.
Other board questions?
Brian, I have a quick question.
Go for it.
Yep. So from the staff's perspective, I know they're offering, Hazen and Sawyer are offering a AI alternative here. So my question is, from the staff's perspective, we're comfortable with how they're moving forward using that alternative?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Yeah, it was something we weren't expecting when we received the proposals, but the value of what they're providing is that they can look at multiple different water qualities on the different sources, the 4 different sources within the data they have, whereas we would be testing each individual one with a rapid small scale column test. And it basically enables us to look at a lot of different options at a lower cost. This particular firm, Hazen, has done close to 40 studies overall for PFAS, and they've been developing this AI approach through the Water Research Foundation. So it's a legit, sort of peer-reviewed type analysis, and we think it can help us kind of get to the answer more cost effectively than doing these rapid small scale column tests.
Thank you.
All right, then my turn. There was quite a discrepancy or variation in the bids from the original documents, and I think we ought to spend a little bit of time talking about those. From a low of 129,787 for Arcadis up to 249, and the option that you're selecting is 217,000. So that's quite a big variation. And I know that they came back in with a different proposal for the AI, which brought down the prices, and that's what you're asking for authorization. But is this one of those things where we should rebid because of the choice of AI was not part of the original package?
Yeah, good. That's a good question. We did spend a fair amount of time reviewing the fee proposals to determine why there was the variation. And it seemed like, for the most part, folks, where there was a difference, it was on the concept design effort, which really, we spelled out what we wanted. Some people took it to one extreme, other folks took it to the other extreme, and so we ended up with higher and lower costs related to particularly on the concept design task. This particular, yes, so, and then to answer your question about should we rebid it, I don't think that's necessary. I don't think it would be, helpful. I would think that if the firms, if any other firm had a product like Hazen, they could have proposed it with this. We didn't exclude the ability for a firm to propose something novel or something helpful. I think we'd probably end up with, yeah, I'm just not sure what other firms have related to this. I think Hazen is one of the only firms that offers this product. I will say that their price is listed 217,000. That was enabled us to compare apples to apples. Their price that we're asking for approval for is the 97,000 number. So yeah, I understand the question, but we got to the bottom of why there was such a discrepancy, and we're confident that, you know, Hazen will do the job we need for this study.
All right, thank you, AJ. I'm going to ask Rich Campbell.
Yeah.
Are we okay on that?
Right. I think that your professional services are not subject to the competitive bidding requirements. Certainly, you're entitled to take it out to bid to seek cost savings or other advantages. But as AJ said, this, I guess, AI model could have been a component of anyone's bid. So I would certainly be comfortable with it. I do have a question for AJ. Was this done in coordination with Grant Eisenhofer as part of the PFAS litigation?
No.
Or done outside that?
No, we're completely aware of that litigation going on, but this was done independently of that.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, and you're confident that the AI model is sort of generally accepted in the scientific community?
I mean, it's a new model. Whether it's completely accepted by everybody out there, we haven't studied that, but that it's been vetted, you know, within the Water Research Foundation community.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean that can have an impact on admissibility of evidence, whether there's consensus around a particular scientific protocol. But that would be the only thing that comes to my mind. I don't, if rebidding it is something that the board wanted to do, it's not inappropriate. Again, if you think that additional cost savings could be achieved, but I don't think that it's fatal to the bids that you've gotten.
Good, thank you. I think the key was that this is a professional service authorization, and
Right.
and we don't have to go out and bid this, particularly that this is a unique kind of experience, and the selected contractor is well known, I guess. All right, so we have before us
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Another question?
Number one, Kevin Baker joined at 12:21 p.m. and Liesl Gross has a question. She has her hand up. Liesl, you can.
Liesl.
Oh, hey, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. I actually should have lowered my hand because I think Rich answered the question appropriately. I was just going to chime in to provide support to AJ that as a professional service in our RFP process, we would not be required to rebid. It's not really a bid at all. It's just a set of proposals. But yeah, I think Rich covered that very well. Grant and Eisenhofer is aware of this study and anxious for the results. So the short turnaround on preliminary results is good for them too.
Okay, good.
Okay. Anybody else? Kevin, welcome to the meeting. Any further questions by the board? Any other questions? And we have before us a professional services authorization for Hazen and Sawyer for $97,778. That's for the Allentown Division Water Filtration Plant PFAS compliance study using AI technology.
So moved.
I think that was Norma that made the motion that I got. In a second. Linda, second?
Yep.
All right, Linda, second. Any
Hey,
questions?
Brian, I'm going to abstain since I wasn't here for the discussion.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. All right, then we have any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much, AJ
Thank you.
and the board. Okay, we have a final piece of action discussion items. Under wastewater, we have Sand Spring wastewater treatment plant treatment process modification, seeking approval, blue documents in our board package, digital pages 102 to 116.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Today I'm seeking approval of professional service authorization for $172,981 for a task order with Tetra Tech for study, design, construction services, demonstration-related services, all related to planned process modifications to the Sand Spring wastewater treatment plant. I invited, and he's here today to help out as needed. Jim McQuarrie is the Director of Water Innovation at Tetra Tech and has been involved with this project for several months now. This authorization includes several tasks, including a process model, design of the demonstration facilities for the process, equipment procurement support, construction support, startup and commissioning, demonstration phase services, and a summary report. We're proposing to modify the treatment plant with what's called the process intensification modification. It's another way of saying it is, notes here is IFAS is the acronym. It's basically, as you saw in the report, it's basically a media. It looks a lot like wagon wheel pasta, and it's intended to help with the process. Basically, once this is added to the process, biological growth will occur on the media, and the media will, that media will help enhance the plant's overall performance. There's a number of modifications to the facility that need to be made to help facilitate this, including changes to the PLC programming, some waste sludge removal modifications, some aeration modifications, and potentially some screening. As you may recall from past board presentations, we've had some compliance issues with the Sand Spring facility. These are intended to help us to reduce the number of compliance issues that we have. And if it works as well as we hope, it could prevent the need for the major modifications that we recommended at a previous board meeting. The estimate previously that we provided was in the $4 million range. This is basically in the $300,000 range if it works okay. So the idea is that we model it. If it proves out in the modeling, we move to design, then we install the media, and we do a demonstration to capture this coming winter through the peak flow in the summertime. So we'd finish up next September, October timeframe, and if it all works, then we wouldn't need any additional modifications. I will say that on a parallel path, we have a 537 process with North Whitehall that's about to be initiated to look at the broader North Whitehall area and to see whether and how the Sand Spring facility fits in with that. But in the meantime, we're looking to help the performance of the Sand Spring plant, and we think this facility, these modifications will help us get there. So again, asking for board authorization of professional services for $172,981 for Tetra Tech. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Board questions?
AJ, a couple of questions. This is Amir. So this using this novel structure of polyethylene, it is not a proven concept, right? It's just it has a sound technical principle, but we have not proven that it works effectively in the systems. Is that correct?
It's a good question. I am going to ask Jim to chime in here, but IFAS, process intensification with this particular media, has been proven effective at other facilities. However, for our SBR type facility, this would be the first, I believe. So Jim, I'll ask you to chime in on that as far as its effectiveness elsewhere and its use in other SBR facilities.
Yeah. Yeah, hi, everybody. I'm Jim Corey with Tetra Tech. And this concept of integrating a fixed film or biofilm into a suspended growth wastewater treatment process is well proven. There are probably well over 150 installations globally. And that's where the comment that was made is, this is based on sound principles. So with regard to the microbiology, that's proven. The unique part with Sand Springs is that it's a sequencing batch reactor. So it's not atypical, but it's not exactly the same flow configuration as the other IFAS installations that I have just referred to. So that's the uniqueness with regard to this application of process intensification at Sand Spring. And that is why the word demonstration is used, because there will be no doubt a thing or two that we will learn through the demonstration, which based on that learning will work to refine the design and get the design to work effectively.
Thank you. And the growth of the biological things is based on the shape of the particles that we're inserting, or because of the surface treatment that we have on those particles?
So this unique shape of carrier actually came out of Norway in the early 1990s. And interestingly, Lehigh County has very cold wastewater temperatures in the winter, and so does Norway. So that's kind of where this whole concept came about, was in Norway. And these carriers are designed in a manner that helps to provide a lot of protected surface area inside each of those carriers. And that acts as kind of a hotel or an apartment for slow growing bacteria. And that is exactly the strategy.
Thank you.
Other board questions? All right, AJ, we received, like Amir and I were privy to comments that Jeff Morgan had made. He's very knowledgeable on wastewater systems. Could you go over some of the questions that were asked by Jeff and the response? And then the final one that he proposed was, for the amount of money, why not just try it without doing the study? So just to clarify, I wanted to make sure that Jeff's comments were thought about during the board discussion, since he's not able to attend today.
Yeah, sure. I'll work through the emails and summarize his questions and our responses. So I'll start with the last one, the question about why can't we just, proceed with the work without the study part. And basically what I said back to that was that we need this study part to do the modeling, to do the actual design, to do the procure the right media, to construct the right facilities, for startup commissioning support during the work, for monitoring during the months of testing and evaluation of all that. We're reliant on the expertise of Tetra Tech for that, and we basically wouldn't be able to do the study without that. There's just too many pieces of the puzzle that need to get developed for it to work properly. So that was one question. Pull up the other. He asked, and we added some information. He asked, what are we estimating for the balance of the work? So we estimated about 130,000 for the media, and then construction modifications So we provided that information. So there was also a question about sort of the sequence and how we're doing this. And the answer, basically the answer we provided back was that we're doing a modeling step first at a desktop level. It's about $10,000 worth of the overall study. And that's to help basically give us a greater comfort level that this process will be effective. If it shows that it fails miserably after that, then we have an off ramp and nothing else gets proceeded. Nothing else proceeds from that point forward. So yeah, we basically provided that feedback and yeah, walk through how the SBR works. Like I said, it's this media that gets added. There's not a lot of physical construction, so that's why those costs are low relative to the overall project costs. So yeah, hopefully that was a good summary. I know there was a number of back and forths that we went through, but I think those were the main items that Jeff brought up. Oh, I'm sorry, one other thing that he asked was, did we evaluate other processes for this? And the answer is yes, we did evaluate as part of the first study what options we wanted to look at. And this IFAS, or a variation of this IFAS, was proposed at the time. And since then, we've had other discussions, and Andrew Moore, our Director of Operations, was really instrumental in bringing this forward, this idea of this type of media for this facility. And so we worked together with Tetra Tech to come up with this. So hopefully that answered your question, Brian. I tried to go through here the emails I have back and forth.
Yeah, there was a number of them, and I appreciate your responses to Jeff's initial questions, and then your presentation of the questions that Jeff raised to the rest of the board. So any other board questions based on those questions that came out of Jeff? All right, hearing none, we have before us a capital project authorization for $192,981 that includes a contract with Tetra Tech for a total amount of $172,981.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Norma, seconded by Sean. Okay. All right, any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much, AJ. And yeah, sorry to put you on the spot like that, but appreciate your thorough response.
I enjoy the discussion. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, on our agenda, we skip over the monthly project updates at this time of the month, but we move on to the monthly financial review. It is white papers within our board packet, and it's digital pages 117 to 129. June report.
Okay, we will start with what happened in June, and we will take a look at what happened during the month on the next one. So for the month of June, on the income statement, we did, what were year-to-date one? Let's go back one more. There we go. So for the month, LCA finished with positive net income. That was kind of a combination of, well, we were positive in suburban water, positive in the city division. Suburban wastewater was a little bit behind, so that was a negative. But overall, we're in positive numbers in total. Against forecast, you could see that all three funds were better than forecast. So even though we had some negatives, they were better than what we thought we were going to have in terms of net income with all three funds and in total LCA. So you get to the bottom and look at the cash flow, you can see that we predicted to have all three funds be somewhat negative. June is usually a month where you end up having some catch-up capital, but mostly due to the fact that most of our debt has some significant debt service payments in June and at the end of the year, and that is the case here. So while we thought we were negative, they did come in negative. I think the good news is that they are all favorable to forecast, so we beat the forecast across all three. So for the month, all favorable variances, both on the income side and on the cash flow side. So I can head to year to date. Okay, this one, a whole lot more green. Total on the net income side on a year-to-date basis, we're good, almost 8 million in total. You can see the positive numbers across all three funds, and compared to forecast, the same picture. We're all favorable, all three funds are favorable, so we finished $1.5 million better than forecast in total. Cash flows are the same thing. All three funds were positive, and all three funds showed favorable variances to forecast. What we look like the full year, we talked a lot about this last month when we did the presentation through May, and we talked about some of the forecast problems, particularly noteworthy in suburban wastewater. However, as we looked at June, we're not really persuaded to change much from where we thought we were in terms of forecast. So we're positive we're saying we're positive $2.4 million. Suburban wastewater is going to be in the negative side in terms of income. We talked about the revenue shortfall. City division positive. So on the income side, we look like we'll be 6.5 million to the good in net income. In terms of budget variance, we think we'll be on the positive side with suburban water. Well, the revenue shortfall is going to play out as an unfavorable variance against budget. And the city division is going to be a little bit unfavorable, and most of that's in depreciation and amortization. So we think we'll be off to budget in total by about 2.6 million. That's in net income. Cash flow is better. So we think we're going to be positive numbers for the year, and all three funds are looking better than forecast on cash flow. We'll get into the funds. So let's take a look at suburban water. You can see there that our net income is showing a favorable variance. You can look at the graph to the right and see that's being driven by higher operating revenues, also higher or lower operating expenses, and also higher interest income. The operating revenue is really coming from a couple segments, industrial, commercial, and residential. And the operating expense is lower, and the big chunk of that is mostly on water purchases. And then, of course, the interest income is really coming from higher interest rates out there. So for the full year, we think we'll be up by 191,000. That reflects favorable variance in operating revenues along with some lower operating expenses. Okay, we're going to cash flows, and this is a year-to-date look in suburban water. We're favorable by 351,000, and pretty much all of it is coming from the operating items that we just talked about, the net income, and again, the higher interest income as well. In terms of cash flows for the full year, you can see that's a big variance, almost $3.6 million. Well, 3 million is because of the debt drawdown that we took that we didn't take last year. So that should pretty much roll out as a positive variance to the rest of the year. However, without that, we would still be on the positive side. So that's all good news. Okay, metrics. Debt service coverage good to all targets. We think we'll be higher at the end of the year. Year-to-date operating ratio, same thing. We're better than all targets year-to-date, and we think we'll be just about where we are now in terms of full year. Days cash on hand is good at 336, so that's good. All three of them are good. We can get into suburban wastewater. All right, so on the net income side, you can see that year to date, we're up by $335,000. A lot of that is coming from operating revenues. In fact, you got kind of two things that are partially offset. You got higher operating revenues, and then you've got some lower operating expenses, and then aided by some interest income on the operating revenue side. Again, higher residential, higher commercial. Also reporting higher hauler revenues to date. On the expense side, this is predominantly through treatment and transportation volumes being a little bit higher, so we spent more. And then again, non-operating is affected by, well, better interest rate picture out there. So for the full year, we think we'll be about $2.6 million behind in income, and that is predominantly the operating revenue shortfall that we've talked about. As we look at cash flows, we're seeing a positive variance year to date on cash flows of 327. Most of that is coming from operations with respect to the income we just talked about, and then again, higher interest income. So really cash from ops is what's driving that favorable variance. Full year, we think we'll be positive by $1.5 million. And that is a combination of holding some money from matured investments to keep cash in a better position because of the offsets from the unfavorable revenue shortfall. So we're gonna hold some cash in there and keep the cash metrics looking good. Okay, metrics. Well, this one's down. Debt service is 8.94, a little bit lower than target, better than the 1.20. We think it'll go up by the end of the year. Operating ratio, a little bit down. It should be 1, so it's a little bit off, close. And we think we'll be at about 0.98 for the year. Days cash on hand, 277. So that's what we were trying to do, was keep that metric up there. All right, city division. Income, year to date, we're favorable by 739,000. Pretty much every category. You can see that we have favorable variances in operating revenues. Again, higher industrial and commercial is affecting that. Lower operating expenses, and this was a little bit down. We had lower spending on some of the D&C material supplies. Non-operating income is up way because interest rates are really helping us in that. And we actually had lower interest expense as well, helping us on a year-to-date basis. So for the year, we think we'll be down by 196, and that will be mostly in depreciation and interest expense. Cash flows. 500,000 plus, good in terms of where we are year to date. Again, the same thing, cash from operations is good, operating side was good. Debt service is lower, a little bit favorable variance in capital spending. And then, of course, the money that we earned on our investments is up as well. For the full year, we think we'll be up by 530,000, and that is mostly higher interest income along with slightly higher operating revenues. So we'll get some help on both sides there. Okay, metrics. Debt service ratio looks good. We're above 2, above 1.2 for sure. We think we'll finish the year at 2.20, so we're actually better than we think we will be for the year. Year-to-date operating ratio, 2.04, better than the 2 targets there. We think we'll come down a little bit to 1.73, but that'll still be good. And days cash on hand is 200, almost 290. This is the scorecard. Basically, Suburban Water came out with all 14 on the green side. Suburban Wastewater, we just reviewed some of that. There was 5 of them on the red side, 9 on the green side. The red ones were the operating ratio that we talked about. Operating expenses being higher due to higher treatment and transportation volumes. And then we talked about what the revenue shortfall did to net income and debt service coverage. City, 1 red, and that was the net income full year based on higher depreciation and interest expense. So pretty good. 14 for Suburban, 9 for Suburban Wastewater, and 13 for the city. Okay, so to kind of summarize it all, we came into the month on the year-to-date side, basically positive, and we remain in that position at the end of H1, so that's good. So as we're looking at the forecast, the last 2 months have been somewhat on the favorable side, meaning we were not at least thinking that you have to go unfavorable on the forecast. We will be reforecasting Q3, but given our H1 position and its favorability to forecast right now, well, I'd say at worst you would stay where you are. Year-to-date operating revenues across the board were favorable for all 3 funds. Just on an ongoing basis, and we'll be considering this in the forecast, we continue to see unfavorable inflation pressures on chemicals and supplies. We are getting higher interest income from higher rates out there. There's been no erosion on $3 million of capital borrowing in Suburban Water. Without that, it would still be favorable. And some wastewater will be unfavorable due to the overstated budget issue we will be fixing. We will hold the investments to make it look better. That is it. Any questions on the financials?
Any board questions? Hearing none. Ed, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Good report. Appreciate the report.
Thank you.
All right, moving on then on the agenda. We have the next one is the monthly system operations overview. Digital board packet pages 130 to 131, also white documents in our board package.
All right, thank you. In front of you, you should have the June 2023 operations report. For water production, you'll notice a slight increase. It's mainly due coming into the summer months, and with the Little Lehigh Creek, those numbers are a little bit higher. Mainly due to how we had to operate the plant when South Mountain was offline. As we go down wastewater treatment, all of our facilities were fairly consistent with what we're normally seeing. We did receive 3.98 inches of rain, and that was very much needed. Main breaks, we did have one in Allentown. That break was on Elm Court, and we did issue a boil water advisory on June 30th. That affected about 31 customers. Once the repair was made, we had 2 consecutive days of coliform sampling, and the advisory was lifted. We did have 2 injuries in June. One was when an employee slipped, and when he tried to catch himself, he ended up tearing a bicep muscle. And the second one was a minor burn at a cookout. And then, as I noted, on June 29th, South Mountain Reservoir was placed back online. We did take that offline in late April, and that was for a clean out, some minor repairs, and also the installation of 4 mixers. So we flip over to the second sheet. The only non-compliances for wastewater that we had were at Sand Spring, which we had 3. We truly believe that what AJ had brought up earlier will help us with those. And the last one is the Allentown Boil Water Advisory. But other than that, everything went fairly well in wastewater and water treatment in June. Does anyone have any questions?
Quick question for me, this is Amir. Of the 9 recordable that we have, how many can you categorize them in the buckets of, is any of the buckets that constitute 4 or 5, or they're all 9 of them are different, a different category?
I don't have a breakdown of all the injuries, but say that again.
Amir, could you repeat the question? I'm trying to help on that one, and I couldn't get the question right.
I mean, we have 9 recordable this year so far, right? I'm trying to, I mean, you can categorize with burn, trip and falls or whatever, there are bucket that you can put those recordable in. I'm just trying to see is there any specific injury which is a standout, for example, trip and fall, which is 5 of these 9 that we have. So we can take a stand down and try to see what corrective action we need to take.
So it's kind of a mixture, to be honest with you, between about 4 categories, 5 categories that have 1 or 2, some strains. We have the fall from the truck, again, a minor burn. One of the recordables was object in eye. So it's not particularly one item that we could just focus on. It's kind of a hodgepodge of a number of different categories.
And Amir, honestly, internally, we were reevaluating how we do our data collection for accidents to get to better root cause analysis for all of these. So in the next upcoming months, what you're going to see is a little bit more granular detail based on accidents and investigations and how we think they've happened and remediation for each of them.
Yeah, Chris, at least in my career, the more near miss that you capture and encourage people to record near miss, the less recordable you have, right? And I think if I look at your presentation last time, you had like 4 near misses was reported. And I think we got to look at the fundamentals that have people rewarded by recording the near misses, so we know, where are the accidents that are ready to happen, so we prevent them before it happens.
I agree 100%.
Yeah,
and we've had a pretty substantial discussion about, what classifies, what's the definition of a near miss. And we've already started talking to our frontline managers about that as well to get their input. The burn that you mentioned, we went back and forth actually for a while about, is it a near miss or was it actually a recordable accident, because there wasn't a nary a second of lost time, but it was, something that needed first aid. It didn't need treatment, it needed first aid treatment, so I think what we're trying to do right now is better establish our definitions, better establish our investigative processes to give us better data to make these decisions in the future.
So Amir, I'll throw in my 2 cents too as well in support of all that. I came from a company that took a great deal of time and effort to record near misses, to analyze near misses, and you are absolutely correct. You'd be surprised at that was almost an accident that was going to happen not too long later.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other questions on the monthly system operations overview? Okay, thank you, Andrew. All right, moving on then, do we have any staff comments to make?
None that I know of.
All right, solicitor comments.
No comment from the solicitor. Thanks, Brian.
All right, anybody in the public have any comments, something to share with the board?
No, thanks, Brian.
No, thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, board member comments on any issues. All right, we do not have any executive sessions, so at this point in time, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody, for the meeting. See you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.